Hi everybody, so you are ready to throw. Before you begin, you're going to grab a ball of clay about the size of a softball. And of course, I wedged it to make sure that all the air bubbles are out and my clay is nice and consistent. Okay, so I threw it in the middle to try to get it centered as possible. And if you didn't, you could use your hands to just gently pat it down and try to get it in the middle. One very important thing about working on the wheel is that your elbows and arms need to be anchored to something. So here you can see my elbows on my knees and also on the side of my splash pan. I'm going to take my finger and seal my ball of clay to the wheel. Okay, you have to make sure your hands and the clay is wet the entire time. First step is to cone up, and I'm doing this by using my palms to create a little triangle. Okay, I'm adding more water, and I'm now going to cone down. Again, I'm using my palm to add pressure to my clay, and as the wheel spins, I'm coning down to create a shape like Patrick's little house. Okay, I'm going to do this a couple more times, coning up and coning down. Okay, squeezing again. Now there are several ways to coning down. This happens to be my favorite way. I'm using the side of my palms to push down to create a nice round dome. Again, I'm going to cone up and use my palms to cone down. Okay, this is a process called centering, and by coning up and down, you're forcing the clay into the center of the wheel. Okay, once it is centered, your hands will stop shaking. The next step is to create a little butterfly with your hands and using two thumbs, pressing down, not all the way down, but right about here. Okay, and one way to check how deep your hole is to take the needle and poke a tiny hole to the center of your clay. Okay, and I'm using my pointer finger to measure how deep my hole is and how thick or thin the bottom of my piece is. Okay, now that I know that my hole is not too deep or not too shallow, I'm using both my thumbs to create a bigger hole. Okay, now I'm opening the bottom of my piece. So now that my clay is pushed to the side of my piece, I'm going to use my right hand on the outside and my left hand using my middle and my ring finger on the inside. Okay, I'm pushing my clay towards each other and up. After every single step, you're going to compress your clay, and you do this by creating a C shape with your left hand and using your pointer finger to flatten out the top. Now, some people like to use their knuckles and pull up this way. Okay, so I'm using my knuckle on the outside, using my two fingers on the inside and pulling up. And of course, remembering to compress. Okay, now if those two techniques didn't work for you, you can also try using the sponge. Okay, here you can use a sponge on the outside and use your 2 fingers on the inside, even pressure, and gently moving your hands up. Okay, this is how you get your piece to be taller, thinner, and getting it to be a cylinder before I start shaping it into the shape I want. Okay, once you are happy with your piece, you are going to take the wooden modeling tool to take off any extra clay on the side. You notice I'm holding the tool with both hands and hold on to it really tight. First, you want to flood the top of the wheel with a sponge and water and use the wire cutter to scoot the water underneath your piece, cutting the bottom. Then your piece should slide right off. Ta-da! Now you're finished with your beautiful creation, and you're going to keep it inside this cabinet. Once you let it dry for 2 days, you're going to trim your piece. Once you take it to the cabinet, there is a little brown bowl with pieces of blue paper inside, and you're going to write your name and place it inside your piece. Okay, stay tuned to learn how to trim your piece and create a foot. Okay, now cleaning your wheel is super duper important. You are going to take this wooden rib and clean off any extra clay off of the wheel, and then take a sponge to wipe down the wheel head. Now, the things on the side is called a splash pan. The splash pan comes off. Then you are going to take a sponge or a rag and wipe down the splash pad. Make sure both sides are clean. Then taking it back to your wheel and attaching it. Okay, you're going to be sure to wash the bucket and the tools and leave it right at the top